Obsession, the state of being obsessed with someone or something, an idea or thought that continually preoccupies or intrudes on a person's mind. Roberto Clemente had a grip on my next subject. Rumor had it that he once made a bid for Clemente's toothbrush. I was determined to see why this man was so obsessed with Roberto Clemente. We set sail June 11th of the year of our Lord 2025. 2 months later, finally, I was hot on his trail. I sailed from port to port, going into various taverns and card shows, determined to question this obsessed man. Finally, after months of travel, I would get my answers. Excuse me, gentlemen. I don't mean to interrupt while you're enjoying good spirits, but if you could be of help to me, I'd be happy to pay for the next round. I'm looking for Theo.
Hey, you mean Clemente Collector?
Exactly what I'm talking about.
We saw him last night. He took our money from us.
Okay.
You can find him down at the Barclay Stock.
Barclay Stock. Sounds like an interesting place. Thank you. I'll look there.
Yeah, landlover.
Ahoy there. I found my man. On this week's episode of Why We Collect, Who We Collect, we're going to talk to Theo at Clemente Collector. He's inside the tavern. I have a list of questions for him. Let's see what he has to say about the great Roberto Clemente.
Clemente's my favorite player because, well, I got to go back to the start. I have to go back to my childhood. I grew up and I was at my grandma's house a lot, and she loved the Pittsburgh Pirates. Every single night at 7 p.m., the Pirates were on the TV. And no matter if they were good, bad, or anything, she watched every single Pirates game. And that's where I fell in love with sports. I fell in love with the Pirates from watching the games with my grandma. And eventually, my grandpa started taking me to the flea market with him on Sunday morning. And when we went to the flea market, he started buying me these baseball cards. This is actually the album from when I was a kid, and these are the exact cards that were in the album. They're all Pittsburgh Pirates, you know? Just like any kid at that time, in my opinion, we loved collecting players from our team, you know? And, you know, I would trade any other team's players for more Pirates cards. That was just me, you know? So this was my childhood album, and one day my grandpa bought me this Barry Bonds rookie card. This is the exact card he bought me, and it's one of the most important cards in my collection because it was the first big card I owned, in my opinion. You know, as a kid, I just thought, you know, I have the best rookie card you could own, right? At that time, not knowing much about sports cards or anything like that, okay? So all my life, I've been a Pittsburgh Pirates fan. And, you know, that gradually went to the Steelers, the Penguins, all that kind of stuff, Pitt Panthers. And then as I grew older, I went to games. And then I start seeing, you know, the Clemente Bridge. When you go to PNC Park, the Clemente Wall. You start hearing the stories about Clemente. I start seeing movies about, you know, documentaries about Clemente, reading books about Clemente. And just, you know, as I got older, I got more and more knowledge about how great of a person, how great of a person he was on and off the field, right? And I honestly believe he's the best Pirate of all time. He's literally the GOAT, right? That's my opinion. So when COVID came and I found out my dad had vintage cards, and he brought them out and showed them to me, and I saw that he had Clemente's. That was the first time that I ever thought about collecting Clemente or vintage cards. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. honestly, collecting cards in the 90s and as a kid, vintage was never even on my radar. I never looked at vintage cards at the shows. I never thought about vintage cards. We really didn't look at Beckett magazines or anything like that, like some of the other card collectors on here did, right? So once I got my dad's Clemente's, I started learning about all his other cards, and it just took off from there. I couldn't get them fast enough. I couldn't get enough Clemente cards, and we're 4 years down the road now, and I think I'm at like 155 unique Clemente cards now, and they're all playing days. And I love collecting Clemente, and I love learning more about him and passing those stories on to the next generation. All right, so this is a tricky question for me because I have 3 cards that I got in the same way. So these 3 cards right here, I got them all in the same way. My father, during COVID, he showed me his card collection from childhood. And he had 2 wax 1961 Topps boxes. And inside of them, he had his baseball cards still in rubber bands, okay? And I kept the Pirates cards from his collection, and these are 3 of them. Now, if I had to pick one of these 3, I would go with the 1962 Topps Roberto Clemente card. The reason is my dad actually he had the whole 1962 set he collected, and it was one of his favorite sets, and it's one of my favorite sets too. So this would be the one card I would keep if I had to get rid of all the rest of my cards. The item that represents Clemente the best, in my opinion, from my own collection, is this picture right here. It was actually from a newspaper. The newspaper was from Canada, and every single Sunday they would put a different picture of an athlete in the paper as an insert. And the paper's name was Demonchi. And this is the Roberto Clemente one, obviously. And I just love this image. He's on top of a dugout. I'm guessing it's before the game starts. He's got kids all around him, and he's signing autographs. And the reason why I think this represents him the best is, like I said, he was a man of the people, and he was always giving back. And I just love that, all the times he would do baseball camps, and in Puerto Rico, he opened a baseball camp down there, and he always cared about the kids, right? So this right here is very special to me for that, and they're actually pretty scarce. You don't see them that often. So this would be the item that I think represents Clemente the best. All right, so my favorite Clemente story goes back to 1969, okay? In 1969, the Pirates were playing the Padres in San Diego, and it was late at night, and the team was back at the hotel, and Clemente wanted to get something to eat. So he went down to the lobby and was going to go find a restaurant to get food at. And Willie Stargell was walking in, and he told Clemente, "Hey, there's a fried chicken place," which is kind of funny because Willie Stargell had a fried chicken restaurant in Pittsburgh. But Willie Stargell said, "There's a fried chicken place that you can go to. I just went there." And Clemente goes, "Okay, I'm gonna walk over there." Okay. Clemente starts walking, gets his fried chicken, and heads back to the hotel. Before he gets to the hotel, a car pulls up. 4 guys get out of the car, and they have a gun. And they say, "Get in the car." And then they had him lay on the floor, and they had a gun pointed to his chin, okay? They drive up to a spot that was very secluded. And they basically said, "All right, get out of the car." They said, "Take off all your clothes, take off all your rings." So Clemente was just down to basically his underwear. That was it. And Clemente had to figure out what he could do to get out of this. They had a gun in his mouth at that time, okay? And he said to him, I play baseball for the Padres," because he was worried that if he said, "I play baseball for the Pirates," they might not be familiar with the team. So he said, "I play baseball for the Padres." And then they looked in his wallet, and there was $250 in there, but there was also a baseball players association card. And then they saw the ring they took off was an all-star ring. So the robbers ended up saying, put back on all your clothes. So he gave him all his clothes, put them back on, and they said, get in the car. So they put the money back in his wallet, they gave him back his clothes, they drove back to the hotel. They, instead of pulling up to the hotel, they pulled up 3 blocks away, okay? They said, all right, go ahead and get out of the car. So he gets out of the car, and then all of a sudden, the car turns around and starts coming back towards him. And he doesn't like know if they changed their mind or what. They pull up and they go, sorry about that, sir. You forgot your fried chicken. Because the fried chicken was still in the car that he bought from before. So they handed him the fried chicken and then left, okay? And then he went back to the hotel and he went to bed and he played the next day. The crazy part about the story is he didn't tell the police. He didn't tell the media. He just told a select few people that story for a whole year. And then the story ended up getting out a year later when somebody from the Pittsburgh media asked him about it. They heard rumors about it and he ended up telling the story. But I thought that was a pretty crazy and funny story about Clemente. This is an easy question for me. It's going to be the 1968 Topps 3D Clemente card. It is it's a grail card for me personally, and I think monetarily, it's a grail card more than it is to find one, because they are out there. They are scarce, but they're out there. But they're very expensive, and it's so cool. It's a test issue Clemente Topps card, and it's got the 3D effect, and it's an amazing image of Clemente. And I'd love to own one. I love scarce cards, and I just love the look of it too. So it's just like, it's a combination of all the above. It's just a great card, and I'd love to own it one day. So that would be my card that I would buy if money were no object.
Did you learn something about Roberto Clemente? I sure did. Thank you, Theo. That was a great review. Thank you for answering all of our questions. The journey was well worth it. Join us next time on Classy Sports Cards.